Star Wars has a long history with Japan. George Lucas was originally inspired by many Japanese films when he was making Star Wars, especially samurai movies, such as those by Akira Kurosawa. That's why there's lightsaber sword fights, samurai-style Jedi, and lots of Eastern philosophy mixed in with the Jedi philosophy. The original trilogy also hit theaters at a time when Japan itself was rising from the ashes of its own former empire, to become a newly rich nation and the high-tech center of the world. Star Wars hit home there and became immensely popular. But it didn't stop at the original trilogy. While the prequels were met with mixed reviews in the US, Japanese audiences absolutely fell in love with them from the start. These days, the prequels are even more popular than the originals in Japan. There are a few reasons for this. One is just economics. While Japan was rising through the 80s, its economy really peaked and plateaued in the late 90s, early 2000s. This meant that people had more money, time, and energy to get involved in the hype surrounding Star Wars at the release of the prequels. People were also already familiar with it by the originals at that point, which helped to boost the hype there, the same as happened in the US. But while American audiences were left befuddled by Jar Jar Binks' silly accent and the dense political discussion, these factors didn't really impact Japanese audiences. The reason for this is a simple one: language. Most Japanese people experienced Star Wars through Japanese subtitles or dubs, meaning they never really experienced the strangeness of Gungan speech or the dry political delivery that most Western audiences had trouble with. In college, I had a Japanese roommate who was a big Star Wars fan, and we bonded over watching the Japanese dub of Revenge of the Sith. I found it just as good, maybe even better at some points than the original movie in English. The translators just made it work. Ewan McGregor and Mark Hamill are the most famous Star Wars actors for the American fanbase, as people love the original trilogy and they appreciate McGregor's portrayal of Obi-Wan. But in Japan, all the acting is translated, so the story itself takes place first and foremost. This has resulted in Hayden Christensen being one of the most famous Star Wars actors in Japan. And good on him, he deserves it. Anakin's story is amazing.
ウォーズに出演しているアナキン・スカイウォーカーことヘイデン・クリステンセン君です。シリーズ
Konnichiwa.
My name is Chikako Komai.
Okay, I'm Hayden. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes.
But pretty much every Star Wars fan will admit that the weakest part of the prequels is the George Lucas dialogue. Great for memes, fun for fans, but off-putting to casual viewers. Japanese translation eliminates this problem though, localizing and reworking the dialogue for the new language and market, leaving Japanese people with an impression based solely on the story and visuals. And if there's one thing even the prequel haters can agree on, it's that the visual effects and overall story were absolutely stunning. So, Japanese people love the original trilogy and they love the prequels even more. But how about the new Disney movies? Well, surprisingly similar to the States as it turns out. The Force Awakens was a big hit in Japan. Then Rogue One was a big emotional moment. When I asked my old roommate what he thought of it, he just said, "It moved me. It really moved me." He typically acts as a pretty tough guy, but I swear he almost had tears welling up in his eyes remembering Rogue One's ending. That's how powerful those movies are. They hit just as hard in Japan as they ever have in America, maybe even more. But like I said, the trends there followed those in the US. The younger fans and more casual fans there enjoyed The Last Jedi well enough, while the older and more involved fans had strong negative reactions to that movie. One interesting difference though is that while in the West most media and critics praised the movie for its supposed positive messaging and subversive themes, the media in Japan, being detached from America's political climate, largely sided with the viewers in rejecting the film as a poor continuation of the Star Wars story. The Rise of Skywalker, called Dawn of Skywalker in Japan, also received low marks and mixed reviews, with most moviegoers just saying that it was a boring mess. Also, Solo, a Star Wars story, flopped in Japan very hard, making only half what Rogue One was able to pull in, and less than a third of what The Last Jedi made. So, Star Wars has a very unique and special place in Japan, with strong connections to its culture from early on, growing popularity through the prequels, and finally a decline as Disney steers the series in new directions. I think it's fair to say that the passion for Star Wars in Japan mirrors, and even sometimes rivals, the United States. So hopefully it's able to bounce back there with new content to reconnect with its Japanese fans, as Disney starts to pull the pieces back together from the sequel trilogy. Star Wars was an incredible work of art as the result of American creativity mixed with Japanese inspiration. And I hope it stays that way and continues to evolve bigger and better things for that long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
あと話が盛り上がったところでですね、私あるおねだりをしちゃいました。おはよう朝日ですけど番組はですねしちゃったんでもう一回。
おはよう。おはよう。
近くおはよう。
自分用やんか。
おはよう、チカ。
オッケー。どうもありがとうございました。
めっちゃ喜んでるやん。